Welcome to Sleepy Expeditions. The sea is breathing, not loudly, not with the violence of a storm or the urgency of a crossing, just the slow, patient movement of dark water against a dark shore. The sound the sea makes when it is not trying to do anything, when it is simply being what it is, cold, deep, indifferent to the small fire burning on the beach and the men sleeping around it, and the ships resting at the water's edge with their oars shipped and their sails furled. The fire has burned down to coals. You could add wood. There is wood stacked at the tree line, carried from the forest before the light failed. But the coal is enough, just enough warmth to keep the cold at arm's length. Just enough light to see the nearest sleeping form, and the dark shape of the ship beyond him, and the darker shape of the water beyond that. You are not asleep. The night before is always longer than the night after. Find a comfortable position. Let the weight of the ground press up through your cloak. Hard, real. The specific solidity of earth that has never moved and never will. Let the cold settle around you the way cold settles. Slowly, from the outside in, finding every gap in the wall and taking residence there. Close your eyes. The shore is a strip of gravel between the forest and the water. Not sand, gravel, the specific grey-brown stones of a northern coastline, worn smooth by centuries of wave action. Cold enough tonight that the ones pressing through your cloak carry a chill that is not uncomfortable, that is in fact familiar in the way that the cold has always been familiar. You were born into cold. You learned to sleep in it before you learned to walk in snow. The fire crackles, low and steady. The sound of wood that has burned past the explosive phase that is now doing its quiet work, releasing the last of the stored heat, the last of the light, the accumulated energy of years spent as a living tree, reduced now to something that warms 6 men sleeping on a foreign shore. Around you the crew sleeps, 14 men in total. You can hear them, the slow deep breathing of Gunnar, who is large and sleeps like a stone regardless of where he is. The slight restlessness of Bjorn, who always wakes twice in the night and lies still, and then sleeps again, a habit he has carried since boyhood. The others indistinguishable in the dark, their forms wrapped in cloaks, their faces turned away from the dying fire. Men at rest are all the same. It is the waking that separates them. The ships are at the water's edge, 3 of them, long and low, the clinker-built hulls dark against the darker water, the carved prow of the nearest one catching the last of the firelight at the top of its arc. The ships are smaller than they look from the sea. You forget this every time, forget that the vessel which seemed so substantial when you are aboard her, when she is moving and alive and the oars are pulling and the spray is cold in your face, is in fact a relatively modest thing when she rests. But she is not modest when she matters. When she matters. When the water is rough and the wind is against you and the coast of a foreign land is somewhere ahead in the dark. She is everything. The hull between you and the North Sea. The keel that holds the course. The strakes that keep the water out. Some things reveal their nature only under pressure. The sea breathes against the gravel. A sound so constant you have stopped hearing it as a sound. It has become the texture of the night, the background against which everything else rests. The breathing of the men, the crackle of the coals, the occasional shift of weight as someone turns in their sleep. You sit with your back against a log and your knees drawn up, and the cold finding its way through the wool, and the familiar weight of the night around you. Tomorrow, You do not say the word. You do not think it directly. But it is there, in the way that things are there when they are the organizing principle of a moment. Everything else arranged around it, pointing toward it, taking its meaning from it. The night holds what the morning will reveal. The ship resting at the water's edge is the result of generations. Not this ship specifically. This ship was built 7 years ago in the yard of a man in your village whose father built ships and whose grandfather built ships. The knowledge passing through the family the way all essential knowledge passes, not through instruction alone, but through the accumulated watching of many mornings, the gradual absorption of technique, the slow development of the eye that can look at a plank of oak and know where it belongs. She is built of oak. The keel a single piece, long and low, the spine of her, the strakes overlapping in the clinker pattern, each plank slightly overlapping the one below, the edges riveted with iron, the seams caulked with tarred rope that swells in the water and tightens the hull until it is nearly as watertight as a solid hull of greater weight would be. The clinker method is older than memory. It produces a hull that is flexible rather than rigid, a hull that flexes with the wave rather than fighting it, that gives where a rigid hull would crack. What survives is not always what resists. She is shallow. The draft, the depth of the hull below the waterline, is less than a meter. This seems counterintuitive for a vessel that crosses open ocean. It is in fact her genius. The shallow draft allows her to beach directly on a shore without a harbour. It allows her to travel up rivers that would stop a deeper vessel. It allows the crew to pull her onto a beach at night and push her back into the water at dawn without a dock or a crane or anything more than the strength of the men who sail her. The mast is stepped amidships, the sail furled on the yard above it, a square sail of woven wool, dyed to the colour that your village uses, that identifies this ship at a distance to anyone who knows the Norse coastal communities well enough to read the patterns. The sail drives her when the wind is favourable. When it is not, the oars do the work. 16 positions, 32 oarsmen rotating through shifts, the rhythm of the oar strokes becoming the rhythm of the passage, the sound of blades entering and exiting the water becoming the sound of time passing and distance accumulating. You have rowed this ship for 7 days to reach this shore. Your hands show it. The calluses that have been building across years of rowing are harder than they were a week ago. The specific muscles of the back and shoulders, the ones that do the actual work of a long oar stroke that most people do not know they have until they need them, carry the accumulated fatigue of 7 days at the oar in the particular way that fatigue settles into muscles that have been asked for too much across too many hours. The body keeps its own record of where it has been. The ship rests on the gravel. The water moves against her hull in the slow rhythm of the tide, lifting her slightly, setting her back, lifting again. She is resting. She is not asleep. Ships do not sleep. But she has that quality of waiting that resting things have. The word Viking is not what you call yourself. It is a verb in your language. To go Viking means to go raiding, to go voyaging, to go beyond the familiar waters into whatever lies beyond them. You are a Norseman, a northerner, a farmer in the warm months, a fisherman when the fishing is good, a warrior when the circumstances require it, which they do more often than the farmers of softer lands seem to expect. The Norse world is a world of water. The fjords carve so deeply into the western coast of your homeland that almost every settlement of any size is on water. The sea is not a boundary for your people, it is a road. You learned to navigate it as a child the way children in other places learn the paths between their village and the next, the way through the forest, the location of the winter pasture. The sea was always legible to you, its moods, its currents, its particular colour in different weathers. All of this was learned before it was taught, absorbed through the accumulated experience of being a people for whom the water is simply the medium through which life moves. The sea does not separate Norse people, it connects them. The raids began because the farms could not support the people. This is the part that the monasteries and the chronicles of foreign kingdoms never quite understood when they wrote about you, or wrote about what you represent to them, which is something simpler and more frightening than the reality. The Norse lands are beautiful and cold and not generous with their soil. The growing season is short. The winters are long. A family that cannot feed itself must find another way to feed itself, and another way has always been available to people who can build ships and sail them, and are willing to go into the unknown and take what they find. Not every Norseman raids. Most, in truth, do not. Most farm their land and fish their waters and trade when trade is possible. And Norse traders appear in markets from Constantinople to Baghdad, carrying furs and amber and walrus ivory in exchange for silk and silver and the goods of warmer lands. The Norse world is a trading world as much as a raiding world, perhaps more. The raids are the part that foreign chroniclers write about because the raids are dramatic and the raids touch their lives directly. But the raids are not all that there is. You are not what the fear of you has made you. You are a man from a cold northern land who can navigate by stars and build a ship from oak and survive a winter that would kill a southerner, and love his family, and tell stories and drink too much at the midwinter feast, and worry about the harvest and feel the sea in his chest when he is away from it too long. Tonight you are sitting on a foreign shore with 14 sleeping men around you and 3 ships at the water's edge, and tomorrow something will happen that you have done before and will do again. That is part of the life you have chosen, that does not make you simpler than you are. Gunnar is the largest man you have ever rode beside, not the largest you have ever known. There was a man from the eastern fjords at the thing 3 summers ago who made Gunnar look modest, but the largest you have shared a ship with, whose oar pulls on the same stroke as yours, whose presence in the hull changes the way she sits in the water. He is asleep with his cloak over his face. He does this in every camp, every voyage, every night ashore. The cloak over the face, blocking the light, blocking the world, creating a small dark space within the larger dark that is entirely his. You have asked him once why he does it. He said he sleeps better when he cannot see that there is something to be awake for. Some people make their own darkness. Gunnar has rowed with you for 4 years. He came to the ship through the way many men come, a difficult winter, a farm that could not sustain the family it was expected to sustain. The specific calculation that a man makes when the options are staying and watching those who depend on him go hungry, or going and sending home what the going provides. He sends most of what he earns home. You know this not because he has told you directly. Men do not say these things directly, but because you have observed over 4 years the pattern of what he keeps and what he does not keep. After each voyage, after the division of what has been taken, Gunnar's share disappears into arrangements that are clearly not for his own benefit. He eats the same as everyone, drinks the same, wears the same wool. He is a man whose purpose is someone else's welfare. The fiercest fighters are often the gentlest people at home. Bjorn is younger, 22, perhaps 23. He joined the ship 2 years ago with the specific eagerness of a young man who has formed an idea of what this life is like from the stories he has been told, and has not yet had the idea corrected by experience. The idea has been correcting itself slowly, not in any dramatic way. Bjorn is not a man who makes dramatic adjustments, but you have watched him change over 2 years, watched the eagerness settle into something more measured, watched the stories he told himself about what this was give way to a more accurate account of what it actually is. He is becoming something useful. The others, 12 more, sleeping in their various positions on the gravel, you know with the specific intimacy of shared close space and shared difficulty over many voyages, their rowing rhythms, the particular way each one handles uncertainty, the ones who become quiet when they are afraid, and the ones who become louder. Fear speaks differently in different people, but it always speaks. The village you left 7 days ago is in a fjord. All villages worth living in are in fjords. The water comes in from the sea and narrows between cliffs that rise higher than anything you can see tonight on this flat coastline. The mountains on either side catching snow before the valley does, holding it through the spring while the lower ground greens and warms. The village sits where the fjord widens enough to allow a beach and a landing, and the cluster of longhouses that constitute home. The longhouse you grew up in faces south. This is not an accident. Nothing about a Norse longhouse is an accident. The orientation captures what light is available in the short winter days. The single long room warm from the central hearth. The smoke rising through the louvered opening in the roof. The smell of wood smoke and animals and food all present simultaneously in the particular mixture that means indoors in winter. Some smells carry entire childhoods. The animals share the longhouse in winter, not from lack of other options. There are other structures, but because the warmth of the animals is useful, and the warmth of the people is useful to the animals, and the Norse winter is long enough that usefulness overrides other considerations. You grew up sleeping in a room where the cattle were on the other side of a partition, their warmth audible and present. You have slept in worse conditions since. The fjord is its own world. The water is different from the open sea, darker, stiller. The colour changed by the depth and the runoff from the mountains and the particular quality of light that the cliff walls permit in a space so enclosed. Fish run in it that do not appear in open water. The seabirds are different. Even the sound is different. The echoes from the cliff faces, creating a particular acoustic quality that you have never heard replicated anywhere else. You hear it now in memory, sitting on this flat foreign shore, the echo of a bird call off the cliff, the specific sound of water in the fjord in the early morning, before the wind picks up, when the surface is glassy and the reflections of the mountains are exact. Distance makes you hear what you have stopped noticing. Your mother stood at the water's edge when the ship left, not weeping. Norse women do not weep at departures. It would be an insult to the man who is leaving, an implication that the departure requires mourning, which would be the same as saying the man is not expected to return. She stood at the edge and watched the ship pull away from the shore, and you watched her become smaller as the fjord widened around the ship, and then she was a figure among other figures at the water's edge, and then she was part of the village, and the village was part of the hillside, and the hillside was part of the fjord, and then the fjord mouth opened, and the sea took the ship. You did not look back after that. The sea does not accommodate looking back. The Norse world is held together by stories. Not laws, or not primarily laws, though there are laws, recited at the things that gather all the free men of a region to settle disputes and make decisions in the particular loud and contentious way that Norse governance works. But stories are older than the things and more pervasive. The stories tell you what the world is, how it came to be, what holds it together, what will eventually end it. Odin made the world from the body of a giant. This is the story. Odin and his brothers killed the primordial giant Ymir, and from his body made the earth and the sky, his flesh the soil, his blood the sea, his bones the mountains, his skull the dome of the sky. The world is made of something that was once alive, and this is why it feels alive. Why the sea has moods and the mountains have personalities, and the wind in a particular place sounds different from the wind everywhere else. The world was not created, it was transformed. Odin hung on the world tree for 9 days to gain the runes. The runes are letters, but they are more than letters, they are forces. Patterns in the fabric of reality that can be made visible in carved marks on wood or bone or stone. Odin gave his eye to Mimir's well for a drink of wisdom. Odin wanders the world in disguise. An old man with a wide-brimmed hat and a staff, watching, learning, preparing for what he knows is coming. He knows how it ends. Ragnarok, the twilight of the gods. The great battle at the end of time when the wolf breaks free and the serpent rises from the sea and the gods and the giants fight and most of them die and the world is destroyed and remade. Odin knows this is coming. He has seen it in the runes, in the visions that the well's wisdom gave him. He prepares for it, gathering the heroes who die in battle to Valhalla, building the army that will fight beside him at the end. This is why the battlefield dead go to Valhalla. Not as a reward, as a need. Odin needs warriors for the final battle. And the warriors he needs are the best warriors, and the best warriors are the ones who die fighting. To die in bed is to miss the purpose. To die in battle is to be chosen. The Norse gods are not immortal. They are simply lasting longer than most. You believe these stories the way you believe in the cold, not as an intellectual proposition, but as a physical fact about the world you inhabit. The gods are real in the same way that the sea is real, in the same way that the winter is real. Not something you have chosen to accept, something that is simply the case. Odin is watching tonight. Not specifically. Odin's attention is distributed across a vast world, and a great deal of it is occupied with the preparations for the end that he knows is coming, and that has not come yet. But the quality of his attention includes this shore, this fire, these men, this night. You are not unobserved, you are simply one of many observed things. 7 days at sea. The first day out of the fjord the wind was with you, a strong westerly that filled the square sail and drove the ship east-southeast at a pace that made the oarsmen lean on their oars and grin, the ship lifting over the swells in the long rolling motion that is not like anything on land, that is the ship's specific language, the way she tells you what the sea is doing. The third day the wind dropped, the oars came out. 16 positions, 2 men to each oar, rotating through the day in 2-hour shifts, 2 hours rowing, 2 hours rest, 2 hours rowing, the rhythm settling into the body and becoming automatic, the mind detaching from the mechanical act of the oar and going somewhere else, while the arms and the back do what they have been trained to do. You have done this enough times that the somewhere else is a specific place, not a location, a quality of attention, a state that is not quite sleep and not quite waking, where the physical effort continues without conscious direction, and the mind rests inside the effort the way a river rests inside its motion. You emerge from long rowing shifts with arms that hurt and a mind that is rested. Some work empties the body and fills the mind. Some work empties both. The difference is in the repetition. The sea changes across 7 days. The colour of it near the coast of your homeland is a specific deep green grey. The water there has particular qualities from the runoff of the land and the specific depth of those coastal shelves. 2 days out it changes, deeper blue, then darker. The transition is gradual and then sudden, a moment where you notice the difference and realise it happened some time ago without announcement. The open North Sea is a different colour from the coastal water, darker, more opaque, moving in longer, heavier swells that have come from further away than any coastal wave. Swells that carry in them the accumulated energy of hundreds of miles of open water with nothing to slow them. The ship handles these swells well. She was built for them. The shallow hull rises with each swell and falls in the trough and rises again, the motion continuous and rhythmic, the crew adjusting their bodies without thinking, the balance that comes from years at sea, not a conscious calculation but a deep physical knowledge, an awareness of the ship's motion that operates below the level of deliberate thought. On the 5th day you saw dolphins, a pod of them, following the ship for 2 hours in the afternoon, the dark shapes moving easily through the water alongside and beneath the hull, surfacing occasionally with the specific sound that always surprises you, even when you expect it. The crew watched them. Even Gunnar came to the rail. What is wild is not always what is far. On the 7th evening, the coast appeared, low on the horizon at first, a darkening that was different from cloud, that persisted through the change in light as the sun descended, that resolved gradually as you came closer into the specific topography of a low coastline with a river mouth and the flat agricultural land behind it that you had been told to expect. The ships turned toward it, the oars shipped, the hulls grounded on the gravel with the specific sound of arrival. That was 6 hours ago. You do not speak of tomorrow directly. This is not superstition, or not primarily superstition. It is the specific Norse relationship with fate, which is a real thing, a woven thing, the Norns sitting at the roots of the world tree and spinning the threads of individual lives with a patience that makes human urgency seem beside the point. What will happen tomorrow is already determined, not in the sense that your actions do not matter. They do, and the quality of what you do tomorrow will be the direct cause of specific outcomes. But the broad shape of it, the fact of whether you return from this shore or do not return, whether Gunnar returns, whether Bjorn returns, that is woven already, and speaking of it does not change it and might offend whatever forces have an interest in maintaining the fiction that the future is open. The future is open, the threads are already cut. Both things are true in the Norse understanding without contradiction. You will go ashore at first light. The ship will be left with a minimal crew, 2 men, enough to hold her against a current if the tide turns. The rest will go inland with what they carry. The settlement you have been told about is 3 miles from the shore. Not a town, a monastery, one of the Christian religious communities that appear with increasing frequency along these coasts, that have accumulated silver and cloth and books and other valuable portable things in the course of their practice, that are staffed by men who have chosen a life of prayer, over a life of defense. You have done this before. You know what it involves. You know the specifics of what will happen and what will not happen. The line that you hold even here. There are things that are done and things that are not. And the men on this shore know this as well as you do, and the knowing holds even tomorrow morning, when the blood is high and the moment is what it is. A man who loses himself in the moment is not a warrior. He is a danger to his own people. You think about tomorrow without thinking about it directly. The way you have always approached the night before, holding it at a slight angle, not looking at it full on. The way you look at a faint star by looking slightly to the side of it, which is the correct technique because the center of the eye is less sensitive to dim light than the edges. The approach by indirect attention. Tomorrow holds what it holds. You are afraid. This is not something you say. Not because saying it would be weakness. The Norse understanding of courage is not the absence of fear, which would be stupidity, but the management of it, the ability to act correctly in its presence. You can say you are afraid. The other men would understand and nod, and perhaps say the same, if this were the kind of conversation this shore invited. But the shore does not invite it tonight. Tonight the shore is for the sleep that is available and the quiet that is possible before the morning takes both away. Fear is the body's way of paying attention. Listen to it, do not obey it. You learnt this from an older warrior whose name you still carry in the way you carry the names of people who taught you something real. Not as a story to tell, but as a presence in the decisions you make. The voice that sounds when the moment requires a specific kind of judgment. He said, fear is information. Use it the way you use any information, not as a command but as data. It tells you that the stakes are real, that attention is required, that the body is ready. After it has told you these things, you can set it aside, not suppress it. Set it aside. Let it run in the background while the foreground stays clear. You have been practicing this for 15 years. Practice is not mastery, but it is the only path toward mastery. The fear tonight is a familiar thing, not comfortable. Fear is not comfortable, and anyone who tells you they are comfortable with fear before a raid is either lying or has not done it enough times to understand what they are agreeing to. But familiar, the same quality it has always had, the same location in the body, a tightness across the chest that is not quite pain, a heightened awareness of peripheral detail, a tendency for the mind to rehearse specific scenarios that may or may not be relevant to what tomorrow actually holds. You let it rehearse. The scenarios play, you watch them the way you watch passing clouds, with attention but without attachment, aware of them without being inhabited by them. The body stays warm by the fire, the hands rest on the knees. The sea breathes against the gravel with the same patient rhythm it has maintained all night. The sea has no opinion about what happens tomorrow. This is one of the things you love about it. The women of the Norse world run things. This is not what the foreign chroniclers write, but it is what you know from being inside the life rather than outside it. When the men are gone, and the men are gone often for months at a time on voyages that may or may not end in return, the women manage the farms and the herds and the households and the disputes between neighbours and the raising of children and every other function that a community requires to continue functioning. They do this with a competence that is not noticed when the men are present and becomes visible only in its absence. Some strengths are most apparent in the space they fill. Your wife's name is Astrid. She is 31 years old, the same age as you, and she has managed the farm through 3 of your absences with a consistent competence that you have never quite found adequate words for. The farm is better each time you return, not from luck or from favourable weather, though both have played their parts, but from specific decisions she has made in your absence about which fields to plant and which to let rest, which animals to keep through the winter and which to slaughter, how to negotiate with the neighbour whose boundary marker has a tendency to migrate in directions that favour his cattle. She is better at this than you are. You know this and she knows this, and it is not a source of difficulty between you. It is simply a fact about the distribution of capacities in your marriage, alongside other facts. That you are better at certain aspects of the seafaring that she has no interest in learning, that she is a better mother than you are a father, that you make her laugh in a way that you have never quite been able to do deliberately, and that happens anyway. Love is mostly the specific things. The general feeling follows from them. She did not weep when you left. She stood at the water's edge the way your mother stood, upright, watching, present until the ship was past the point where watching was useful. And then she turned and went back to the work that was waiting, that is always waiting, that does not pause for departures. You think about her more clearly at night than during the day. During the day there is the ship and the sea and the work of the voyage, and the mind is occupied and she is somewhere in the background of it, present but not foregrounded. At night she comes forward, the specific familiar weight of her presence in a space, the way she takes up exactly the amount of space she needs and no more, the way she sleeps, the sound of her breathing in the longhouse in the dark. What you miss is always more specific than what you think you will miss. The dead go somewhere, not all of them to the same place. The Norse afterlife is not a single destination, but a distributed system that reflects the Norse understanding of what different kinds of lives deserve. Those who die in battle go to Valhalla, Odin's hall, the great hall of the slain. An enormous structure, its roof thatched with shields, its rafters made from spears, 540 doors, through each of which 800 warriors can march abreast. The warriors who have died in battle spend their time there in a specific kind of eternity, fighting by day, feasting by night, the wounds of the day's combat healed by evening, the cycle repeating until Ragnarok requires what they have been assembled for. It is not a gentle afterlife, but it is a purposeful one. The Norse did not want rest after death. They wanted to remain useful. Those who die of illness or old age, the straw death it is called, the death that happens in bed, go to hell, not the Christian hell, not a place of punishment, just the realm of the ordinary dead, a dim and quiet place beneath the roots of the world tree, where the dead go about a diminished version of living. Not terrible, just less. The distinction matters, not because you are afraid of hell, or not primarily afraid, but because the distinction between the two destinations maps onto the distinction between two ways of living, two approaches to the time that is available. Valhalla requires a certain kind of life. It requires the willingness to put the body where the stakes are real, to be present in the moments where the outcome is not certain. You have chosen this life, not without reservation, not without the awareness that the choice has costs that others pay as well as you. Astrid at the water's edge, your children growing through summers and winters that you are not present for, the farm continuing in your absence because someone who is not you is capable enough to continue it, but chosen. Every choice is also what it leaves unchosen. The stars above the North Sea are the same stars that are above Valhalla in the Norse understanding of the world. The same sky that covers the living covers the dead. The distinction between the realms is not a distinction of location, it is a distinction of state. You are in the state of living. For now, for tonight, for as many more nights as the threads permit, Odin is watching. The Norns are spinning. The threads are what they are. The stars are very clear tonight. This coast is flat and open. No cliff walls to obscure the horizon. No mountains interrupting the sky. The sky runs from the water's edge in the east to the tree line behind you in the west. An unbroken dome of dark blue-black with the stars thick in it. The Milky Way, a visible band crossing the upper arc. You navigate by these stars, not by the specific positions that a chart would show. You carry no charts. By the relationships between them, the angles and the patterns that you learnt before you learnt the names for them, the way the pole star holds its position while everything else revolves around it, the way specific clusters appear at specific times of year at specific angles above the horizon, telling you where you are in the annual cycle and where you are on the sea. The stars are a language. Those who learn it are never entirely lost. Tonight you are not navigating, you are sitting on a shore, watching the stars the way you watch them when the pressure of the voyage is not on you. Simply watching, with the quality of attention that is available when there is nothing to do with what you see except see it. The pole star is directly ahead. North, always north. The one fixed point in the whole rotating sky, the point around which everything else turns, the reference from which all other positions are calculated. You have been looking at it your entire life. From the fjord in childhood, you watched it and understood without being told that it was something different from the other stars, something that stayed. Some things are worth looking at simply because they stay. The stars that the Norse call the Great Wagon are high in the sky tonight. 7 bright stars in the pattern that your grandfather called the wagon, and that the southern peoples call something else. The same 7 stars, different names, different stories layered over the same light that has been falling from those same points in the sky since before any story existed to explain it. The light from those stars left its source thousands of years ago. You do not know this. The Norse understanding of the sky does not include the distances involved. The stars are lights in the dome of the sky, placed there by the gods for the specific purpose of guiding those who sail and hunt and travel, maintained as part of the organization of the world. But the light is old regardless of whether you know it. Some truths do not require understanding to be true. You have chosen this life 15 times, not once at the beginning, 15 times, once for each voyage, once for each departure from the fjord, once for each morning you stepped into a ship and the ship moved away from the shore, and the shore became the past and the sea became the present. Each time a choice. The first time it was not quite a choice. You were 17 and the opportunity was there, and the winter had been difficult, and the alternative was to stay and watch the farm struggle through another season of marginal return. The calculation was not complex. You went. The second time was easier. The third easier than the second. Choice, repeated, becomes character. By the 5th voyage you were not calculating. You were going because you were a man who goes. Because the sea was in your chest in the specific way it gets into some people and stays there. A restlessness that the fjord soothes but does not cure. a pull toward the horizon that the winter farm simply cannot answer. Astrid knows this about you. She knew it before you did, probably. She is often ahead of you in knowing things about you, which is one of the facts about your marriage that you have come to accept with something close to gratitude. She knew that you would go again before you knew it. She made her adjustments to the fact of it with the same practical competence she brings to everything. Some women love their husbands by letting them be who they are, but there is something else, something that sits alongside the pull toward the sea and the necessities of the farm and the economic logic of the raid, something that you have not quite found words for across 15 voyages that surfaces most clearly on nights like this one. Sitting on a foreign shore, the fire down to coals, the crew sleeping, the ships at the water's edge, the life is real. That is the closest you can come to it. The life is real in a way that other versions of the life available to you do not seem real. The farm is real in its way, the daily work, the seasonal rhythm, the specific satisfactions of a harvest that comes in well, but this is real in a different way, more present, more vivid, the cold more cold, the stars more bright, the breathing of the men around you more audible, the sound of the sea more specific. Some people need the stakes to be real to feel that they are real. The sea is breathing. It has been breathing all night. The same slow rhythm against the same gravel shore. The same patient movement of dark water against the land. You have been listening to it without quite listening to it. It became part of the texture of the night early on, part of the background, the thing against which everything else rests. But now, in the late part of the night, when the fire has burned down to the last of its red and the crew sleeps as deeply as they will sleep tonight, the sound of the water is the predominant thing, not loud, never loud on a night like this, just present. The specific sound of a northern sea on a calm night, the swells arriving from somewhere far out, rolling in with a patience that crosses entire oceans, reaching the shore and releasing the energy they have been carrying in a long, slow exhale against the gravel. Not a wave, an arrival. The sea completing something that began far away. The sea carries what it carries until it reaches the land. You have been listening to this sound your entire life. In the fjord it is different. The water there is contained, and the sounds of it are contained with it, smaller and more precise. But the open sea has this quality on calm nights, this largeness, this sense of something immense doing something small. The way a very large animal can be very gentle when it chooses to be. The sound is constant, not identical. Each arrival is slightly different from the last. The interval between them not quite regular, the volume varying with the shape of the swells coming in, but constant in the way that a fire is constant, the underlying pattern unchanged while the surface varies. You let your mind rest in it. The specific skill of the sea-worn man, the ability to receive the sound of the water without resistance, without the need to do anything with it, without even the need to name it, just the sound, and the mind resting in the sound, the way the sea rests in its own motion. Rest is not absence, it is a different kind of presence. The night is at its deepest, the particular quality of the hours before dawn, the cold at its most complete, the fire at its lowest, the darkness without the quality of being almost over, still fully itself, still entirely night. You have been awake this whole time, not from anxiety, or not from anxiety alone, from the specific quality of the night before, which requires a kind of wakefulness that is not the wakefulness of insomnia, not fighting sleep, simply being present in the night in the way that certain nights require presence. In a few hours, the eastern sky will begin to pale. Not quickly, the dawn comes slowly at this latitude, the light building for a long time before the sun appears. The sky running through a sequence of color changes, deep black to deep blue to a faded blue that is not quite day, to the specific amber of actual dawn that takes more than an hour from start to finish. When the light is enough, you will wake the crew, not with words, with the quality of your movement. You will stand and stretch, and the nearest man will open his eyes and see you standing and sit up, and the sitting up will ripple through the sleeping forms until they are all awake. This is how it always happens. The crew wakes not to a sound, but to the sense that the time has changed. Some signals have no language. Before that, there is this: the last of the night, the fire at its lowest, the sea breathing, the stars near their western positions, having travelled across the sky in the hours since you sat down. The sleeping crew, the ships at the water's edge, patient, ready, and you, sitting with your back against a log, your knees drawn up, the cold familiar against the wool, the sound of the water so present and so constant that it has stopped being a sound and become simply the quality of the world. Tomorrow will be what it will be. The threads are cut, the shape of it is determined. What remains is to be present for it, fully, without reservation, with the specific quality of attention that the life you have chosen requires, and that 15 voyages have been teaching you to maintain. The Norns spin, the sea breathes, the night holds. The coals are almost out. Not quite. There is still a faint warmth visible if you look directly at the place where the fire was, a deep red glow in the grey of the ash, the last of it giving back the heat that the wood stored across years of growing. The crew breathes around you. Slow, deep, 14 men in their various positions on the gravel, their cloaks drawn tight, their faces turned away from the cold, their bodies doing what bodies do when there is nothing to do but rest. Gunnar's cloak is over his face. Bjorn has shifted in his sleep, his position different from where he lay down, his body finding its way to something more comfortable through the unconscious adjustments of the sleeping. The sea breathes. It will breathe through the rest of the night and through the dawn and through whatever tomorrow holds. The sea does not pause for raids, or for the outcomes of raids, or for anything that happens on the shore it reaches. It arrives and retreats and arrives again with the patience of something that has been doing this since before there was a shore to reach. Some things continue regardless. The pole star is where it always is, fixed, unwavering, the point around which the night has been rotating in the hours since you sat down. The same star your grandfather navigated by, the same star his grandfather used, the same light that has been falling from that same point in the sky since before the Norse had ships to sail by it. You are on a foreign shore. You are very far from the fjord. You are exactly where the threads placed you, no further and no less far, the specific location that the Norns determined before you were born. You are here. That is enough. Let the sound of the water carry you. Let the coals give their last warmth. Let the breathing of the men around you be the sound of the world working as it should. Living things resting, gathering themselves, doing the silent, necessary work of restoration that makes tomorrow possible. The sea breathes. The stars turn. The night holds. Sleep now, warrior. The dawn will come when it comes.